Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to go over the Excel 2A and 2B Office for the web. So I've already downloaded my start files and I have opened up the start file in my Excel Online. So make sure that you do see your classic ribbon. If for whatever reason it is minimized, remember to click this small ribbon display options and then select classic ribbon. And I'm just going to zoom in a bit so that it's easier for everybody to see on their screens. And so I'm going to move on to step 3, starting with selecting the range A1 through H1. And then we're just going to merge and center this. Notice that whenever we have a title, generally it's merged and centered above the longest amount of data. So because we have this stock level column here in H, this is where I want my entire title to be merged over. So up in my alignment group, I'll click the merge and center button. And then let's go ahead and apply the title cell style. So we learned about how to do this last week. Remember, you can go up to your styles group, click on cell styles, and then in your titles and headings section, you're going to go ahead and click on title. Another thing that we want to do is just to auto fit the row height. We can do that by going up to your cells group, clicking on format, and then select auto fit row height. So we might not be able to see any immediate changes, but the main thing is that you are aware of doing that just in case for whatever reason it might have been a smaller row. Now I'm going to do the same thing for A2 to H2 in that I'm going to select straight across, merge and center. I'm also going to apply the heading 1 cell style. And then by default, it had already auto-fit the row height for me. If for whatever reason it didn't auto-fit and it was still a little scrunched up, just go back up to format and then select auto-fit row height. And that should fix it for you. So that was just step 3. For step 4, what we're going to do is to select B4. And then we're going to use the auto sum feature. We can find the auto sum feature by going to your editing group on your home tab and then selecting auto sum. By default, because we don't have any data immediately next to where we want the sum function, notice that our cursor is flashing in this parentheses. So it's really important that you don't unnecessarily type anything or click anywhere that you don't need to. But what we're going to do is to type A11 colon A32. And so what we're telling Excel right now is that we want to sum everything from cell A11 down to A32. So immediately after you type that in, make sure that you press your enter key on your keyboard. So this tells us that after totaling all of these quantities in stock, that we have a total of 2,198 in stock. As you recall from last week, you also learned how to apply number formats. In this case, we're going to apply the comma style with 0 decimal places. So we can go ahead and go up to our number group, and we'll click on the comma style button. By default, it inserts a comma wherever necessary, and it also includes 2 decimal places. So make sure that you click the decrease decimal button. That's the one with the little left facing arrow. If you hover your cursor over it, you do have a screen tip that says decrease decimal. So I'm going to click that twice until I just have the 2,198. We can also see up in your formula bar that the formula is equals sum and then in parentheses A11 colon A32. And that's going to bring us to step 5. So for step 5, we are going to click in cell B5. And this time we're going to use the average function. So the quickest way for the average function is to go up to your editing group and click the down arrow next to AutoSum. So this AutoSum section here has the most frequently used functions, and this add, minus, multiply, and divide are kind of new and specific mainly to the Office online version of Excel. But for us, we're going to focus on average right now. So I'll click on average. Because we have a number near where our cell is that we want that function, notice that it's trying to take the average of cell B4. However, what we really want to do is to find the average of our retail prices from D11 to D32. So what we can do is to simply select this B4 here, delete, and type in D11 colon D32, or you can use your mouse button to select all the way down. Okay, so this is what your function should look like, equals average, and then in parentheses, D11 colon D32. When you press your enter key, this gives us an average price of 108.0932. Because we're dealing with prices, we do want to apply the accounting number format. We can do that by going up to your number group, and then we can click on this accounting or $ icon and then select English. So what that does is automatically insert a dollar symbol. If this were a thousands number, then it would also insert commas where necessary. For step 6, we're going to go ahead and click in B7. So notice that next to it we have oak trees. And so what we're going to do now is to use a count function that's going to count all of the instances of oak here in the categories. So what we're going to do is to go up to our Formulas tab, and then in this large function library group, we're going to go ahead and go to our statistical. So in your more functions, I'm going to click on or hover my cursor over statistical. Then I'm going to look for count if. Make sure you count or select count if and not count ifs, as they are two separate functions. Okay, so what opens up here is our function arguments box. This function arguments box is great because it gives you a little description of what each box is for. So if you take a look, first it tells me that the countif function is going to count the number of cells within a range that meet the given condition. And then if I click in this first box here in the range box, on the bottom it says that the range is a range of cells from which you want to count non-blank cells. So in this range box, I'm going to select with my mouse in the background cells G11 down to G32, because this is the section that I want to look for all instances of the word oak. So in the criteria box, notice that here it says the criteria is the condition in the form of a number, expression, or text that defines which cells will be counted. And so my criteria, and because it's text, I do want this in quotation marks. I'm going to type the word oak. So what I'm really telling Excel is that I want to look in cells G11 to G32 and to count, and that's why I use the COUNTIF function, all instances of the word oak. It's also going to give me a little preview of that result here. So it says the function result is going to equal 10. And when I click my insert button, it tells me that there are 10 instances of the word oak. And so that means that I have 10 different items in my oak category. And so those are just the numbers of oak tree types in stock. For step 11, we're going to click in cell H11, and then we're going to insert an if function. So an if function is a logical type function. There's two ways that we can do this. We can use our function library, or we can type directly into the cell. What I'm going to do is to type equals, because whenever we start a function or a formula, we start with the equal symbol. I'll then type in if, and then notice that we do have a drop-down menu appear. And so for me, I'm going to select if, and then this also gives me a mini function arguments that tells me the description. So this if function is going to check whether a condition is met and then returns one value if true and another if false. Okay, and the first thing is going to be a logical test. So what I want to do is to see if whatever in A11, if that's less than 75, I want H11 to say order. If it's greater than 75, then the stock is okay. So basically all we're doing is checking inventory amounts and setting an automatic reminder that we might need to order certain things if it falls below a quantity of 75. So if A11 is less than 75, that is our logical test. So I'm going to press my comma button, and notice after you press comma, that's going to bring you down to the next one. So this is going to be the value if true. So if A11 is less than 75, I want us to be told that it needs to be ordered. Okay, so order is going to be in quotation marks. I'm then going to press my comma button to get to my next argument, which is the value if false. So if A11 is not less than 75, I want it to say okay. And then I'm going to close my parentheses and then press enter. So here we can see that because A11 has a value of 78, which is greater than 75, my stock level is okay. So now let's use the autofill handle to automatically fill this down to the end. If you take a look at these, there are some that need to be ordered, and we can see that all of the ones that have values less than 75 do tell us that we need to order them. Okay, and so that's going to bring us now to step number 8. So step 8 says to select cell A11, and then we're going to create a table from our data. Creating a table is going to allow us to sort and filter our data. And so to do this, we're going to go up to our Insert tab near the top left. And then in your Tables group, we're going to click the Table button. Make sure that you do have My Table Has Headers checked, and then click OK. You'll notice now that even though we didn't have A10 or the entire row 10 selected, because we clicked on My Data Has Headers, it is treating each of these column headers as headings. You'll also notice that we have little down arrows appear to the right of each of those, and these are used for sorting and filtering. And so let's take a look at step number 9 in our instructions. What we're going to do is to apply what's called a conditional formatting. And we're going to apply this to A11 down to A32. And what we're going to do is to go back up to our Home tab. And now in your Styles group, we're going to click on Conditional Formatting. From here, we're going to go down to data bars. And then under the gradient fill section, we need to select the orange data bar. And so I know it looks a little bit yellow, but just keep in mind that this one is red and this is yellow. So what your data bars show you are little bars that give us a visual representation of the values within them. So we can see here in A14 that it has a value of 20, and so that data bar is kind of short, whereas in A21 we have a value of 179, and thus that data bar is a bit longer. And so this just helps give a visual representation of the numbers without having to look at the actual numbers themselves. We can visually see just by the length of the numbers which ones have the highest quantities in stock. Okay, so now let's take a look at step number 10. So for step 10, we're going to select H11 to H32. And we're also going to apply a conditional formatting to this. So let's go back up to your styles group. We'll click conditional formatting. And this time we're going to go down to highlight cell rules. From here, I'm going to click on text that contains. That's going to open up the conditional formatting task pane on the right side of your screen. In the Apply To section, it should have H11:H32. If for whatever reason it does not, make sure that you do type that in. Where it says Input Value or select a cell, we're going to type in the word order. Okay, so we want it to format specific text that contains the word order. And how we're going to format it according to our instructions. And it says that we need to click our format arrow. So if for whatever reason you don't see this format style, you might have an arrow to expand it. Once you see this format style section, you're going to choose this red text option. Once you do that, we can click on Done. And then we're going to go ahead and close out this conditional formatting task pane. Once we do that, and I'm just going to click outside really quickly, we can see that all of the ones with the word order have that red text. This way it's a little bit easier to see the ones that we need to order. So for step 11, what we're going to do now is to sort and filter some of our data. Specifically, we're going to adjust our category column. So I'm going to start by clicking the down arrow to the right of category. And then I want it to show all of the oak categories. So to do that, I'm going to deselect where it says Select All. And then I'm going to click on the checkbox next to oak and then click Apply. And so here we can see just the oak categories. We know that we didn't actually delete any data, it's just filtered, because notice how it skips from rows 14 to 16, 22, 25, and so forth. So we've just hidden those rows and filtered it out to only see the oak category. Next, what we're going to do is to go up to our Table Design tab. So our Table Design tab is just an example of one of the contextual tabs that only appears when we have a specific object selected, in this case a table. And then up in your Table Style Options group, we're going to click on the box next to Total Row. Once you see that check mark, if you notice at the bottom here in row 33, we have total, and then in H33, we should have a total of 10 there. This just tells us that we have a total of 10 oak type trees in the category column. Still for step 11, it says to select cell A33. And you'll notice that there's a little down arrow that appears here. So I'm going to click on this little down arrow. This is my table total row drop down. And then I'm going to select sum. Notice that this now adds all of the quantities in stock here for our oak. So that's what that little sum does here. Next in C7, I'm going to go ahead and type in parentheses, 901 oak trees in stock. And then I'll close parentheses. Once you type that in, you can press enter, and that's going to bring us to step number 12. So for step 12, we're going to go back to our category filter, and let's clear out that filter. So I'll click clear filter from category. Notice that we see all of our data. It even updated that sum as well as the stock level. And then up on our table design tab, we're just going to clear out that total row that we created earlier. So in your table style options, let's click total row, and notice that it disappears. And so when you're ready to save this, make sure you do a file, create copy, download a copy, and then you can upload that into MyLab. So next, let's take a look at the Excel 2B Office for the web. Alright, so I've downloaded my starting files, or starting file. I also have the set of instructions on my other screen. Make sure you print it out, or just make sure that you are able to go back and forth between your MyLab instructions and your Excel window. And I'm going to start off with step 3 because I've already opened this up and I do have my ribbon. So what we're going to do is to create a cell summary similar to the one that you might have practiced in the simulation assignment. So what we're going to do first is to double click our Sheet 1 tab. And so we're going to rename this. So I'm going to double click Sheet 1. That's going to highlight it. I'll type in Austin and press enter. To separate this from the other sheets and just to give it a little more visual appeal, we're going to change the sheet tab color. So right now it's just plain gray. To change the tab color, we're going to right click over it. We can then go to tab color. And then for this one, let's see, it says to go to the 5th column, first color. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we can see that it does have this blue tab color. Next, that's going to bring us to step 4. So we're going to do something similar, this time to sheet 2. So I'll double click. I'll type in Dallas, press enter. I'm then going to right click, go to tab color, and it says the last column, first one. So green accent 6. Okay, for step 5, it does say with our Dallas sheet active, make sure that it's active, and you know it's active because you should see a green underline beneath Dallas, indicating that it is the active sheet in your workbook. Next, it says to select cell E5. So let's just zoom in a bit so we can see this. So I've selected cell E5. And then we're going to use our auto sum. So I'll click my auto sum button. By default, it's going to sum B5 to D5. This is what I want to add up, so I'm going to go ahead and just press my enter key on my keyboard. And that gives me a sum of $971.44 for the total rose sales for Sunday. Okay, it also tells us to fill this down. It says to fill the formula down through cell E12. So what I'm going to do with E5 selected, I'm going to double click on my autofill handle. And then I'm just going to drag it down all the way down to E12. So if it doesn't go all the way down to E12, just drag it down one more. Remember that your autofill is going to copy that formula and put it in all of the cells that you select. Next, we're going to go ahead and select E6 down to E11, and we're going to apply the comma style. Remember, generally in accounting, only the first row and the last rows have the dollar sign. If we didn't do that and all of the numbers had the dollar sign, it might get a little bit difficult to read with all of those dollar signs. So now let's take a look at step 6, where we're going to click on our Austin Sheet tab. Now in E5, we're going to do the same thing. So we'll go to AutoSum, press enter, and then let's copy this formula all the way down to E12. And then we're also going to apply the comma style just from E6 to E11. Now for step 8, we're going to go ahead and create a new sheet. So to the right of bonus, we're going to click on this little plus sign. And then we're going to rename it. So I'm renaming sheet 1 to summary. I'm also going to change the tab color. And it says the 6th column first color. And I actually want our summary sheet to be first. So with my cursor over summary, I'm going to hold down my left mouse button and just drag it to the left of Austin and let go. Next, for step 8, we're going to start typing some data in, and I'm just zooming in so it's easier to see here. So starting in A1, we're going to type in weekly summary. And then in A3, I'm going to type in Austin. In A4, Dallas. And then in B2, I want rose sales, and then C2 is going to be supply sales. And let's go ahead and merge and center A1 through C1. And we're also going to apply the title cell style. Next, I'm going to select the entire columns A, B, and C. And we are going to manually adjust the column width. So up in my cells group, I'll click on Format. I'm then going to go down to column width, and then I'm going to type in 12 and press enter or OK. For step 10, I'm going to select B2 and C2. I'm going to center a line. And then for this, we're going to apply the heading 3 cell style. For step 11, we're going to click in cell B3, and we're going to use a linking formula. So I'm going to start by pressing my equal sign, and I'm going to link this to our Austin Sheet tab. So be very careful that you don't click or unnecessary type anything that you're not supposed to. After you hit your equal sign, we're going to click once on the Austin Sheet tab. We're then going to click once in cell E12 and then press enter. And so this just links the value in E12 to our B3 in our summary sheet. And instead of, just copying and pasting this value of $20,630.76, if for whatever reason this number changed, our summary sheet would automatically update to reflect those changes. Okay, so now let's do something similar, this time in cell C3. Notice that this is going to be for supply cells, and we're still in Austin for the location. So in C3, I'll click equals. I'll go down to Austin, and then I'm going to select, and let's see what it does, what it says. For this one, it's going to be cell F12. You'll then press your enter key, and you should have $14,132.11. Okay, it then says in cells B4 to C4, we're going to create similar formulas that reference the Dallas worksheets. So in B4, I'll start with my equal sign. Remember that this time we're going to our Dallas sheet, and we want our total rows sales in E12. I'll press enter, and then I'm going to do the supply sales in my Dallas sheet. So equals Dallas, and then I'm going to select cell F12 and press enter. For step 14, we're going to adjust the tab color for our bonus sheet. And this one says the 8th column, first color. So this is 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll also zoom in a little bit, just so it's easier for everybody to see. From here, we're going to click in cell C4. This time we're going to use an ifs function, so IFS. To do that, we're going to go up to our Formulas tab. In your Function Library group, we're going to go to our Logical button. And then this time, again, you're choosing ifs, IFS. So we're going to check multiple conditions. Okay, once you do that, let's click inside of the ifs parentheses. Remember, the first one is a logical test to see if something is true. So I want to see if B4 is greater than 4,999. So that's my logical test. I'm going to press my comma so that I can enter the value of true. So if B4 is greater than 4,999, it's going to be 500. Now I'm going to press my comma key one more time, and this is going to be my second logical test. Okay, so here I'm going to type in B4 greater than 2,999, comma, it's going to give me a value of 250. Finally, I'm going to type in my last logical test, so comma, B4. If that's greater than 0, the output is going to be 0. So what we're doing now is pressing our enter key. Notice that because they didn't hit 4,999, they only received a $250 bonus. Let's copy this down. Tyndall did make more than 4,999 in sales, so they did get that bonus of $500, and Matsuo wasn't able to hit that 2,999, so they did not receive a bonus. So that's it for the 2B. Make sure that you do create a copy, download a copy, and then upload into MyLab. If needed, you can make corrections and resubmit for a higher score.